coming up on Florida Derby Day at Gulfstream Park. You can still save some money right now when you take advantage of the Road to the Derby package. So you can get PPs for Gulfstream on Saturday, Florida Derby Day, 10 stakes races on the card on Gulfstream Park's Saturday, one of the biggest days of the meet. It's also Arkansas Derby Day over at Oaklawn. You can get PPs for that event. Then next week, there are 3 Kentucky Derby prep races that you can get the PPs for all of them, for Santa Anita Derby, for Bluegrass, and for the Wood Memorial. You'll get the Clocker reports for Gulfstream on Saturday. You'll get it for Santa Anita Clocker report next week. Then you get the PPs, the betting strategies, Clocker reports for the Derby and for the Oaks. So you can still save money on this right now, even through next week, if you want to bundle it all together. But Barry, it is that time of the year, my friend. We had a couple preps last weekend. This weekend, it feels a little bit different, though, because we are going to see the number 2, 3, and 4 horses that are on David Aragona's Derby watch. Chief Wallaby is second in the most recent Kentucky Derby pool. Nearly was the 3rd choice, and Commandment was the 4th choice. We're going to see those 3 horses who are on basically everybody's top 5 contender lists right now. They're all going to face each other in the Florida Derby, and the Puma is going to be in there as well, who's solid. And then over at Oaklawn Park in the Arkansas Derby, we're going to see Renegade, who a lot of people have just behind those horses. So, I mean, we're going to see some of the real heavy hitters this weekend.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see what's going to happen in these races because, you know, unfortunately, only one horse can win unless there's a triple dead heat or something and you get 3. But to see what everybody's plans are going to be, I mean, honestly, there's some horses that probably don't need to win to get into the Derby, and maybe they're not as cranked. You know, it's very hard the way everything shakes out now that the point system is in place the way it is. And really, these horses get like 2 preps instead of like 3 or 4. So it's hard to tell what's going to happen. I mean, I would think that maybe one of these top contenders doesn't run well and they won't be in the Derby despite having all the points, but we'll
see. It's amazing
see.
because things change so quickly, right?
Absolutely.
You see it in one race. Even just a few weeks ago at Santa Anita, like Brant shows up in his first race of the year, doesn't really run well. At that point, he's one of the top horses because he's returning from last year as a 2-year-old where he was very good. And then boom, it's like you don't fire, and then you're just off the trail quickly a lot of the times for these horses who go from being like right towards the top of the division, and then you have the one bad race where all of a sudden it's like, you know what? Maybe they don't want to go that far. Maybe they're not ready right now for this, and they're just immediately off the trail. So you're right. You look at it right now, and you have these 3 horses that are towards the top of everybody's lists. But really, it's funny, of all of them, the Puma has the most points. He has 56 points right now. When you look through the field, Commandment has 50 for his win. And then the horses below, like Chief Wallaby, he only has 25 points right now. So he's actually sitting at the 20th spot. So he likely needs a top 3 finish to get in. You know, just 3rd would probably get him enough points. Nearly is actually even below him. Nearly only has 20 points. So, and he's at number 24. So while we kind of look at some of these horses that are going to run this weekend as big players right now, 2 of them, Chief Wallaby and Nearly, they really do need a good performance to even get enough points to get them in.
Yeah, I mean, and on the flip side of that, you look at a horse like Incredible, who didn't run well at Gulfstream, comes back in the Virginia Derby and runs lights out, and now is kind of one of the leaders. So, like you said, it changes very fast and quickly. It makes for a tough betting, situation come Derby time, of course. But
you start to think too, Barry, just about like some years how it could be just bad luck that 3 or 4 of the top horses are all down here at Gulfstream Park right now. Because if one of these 3 horses were to go elsewhere, like if any of these 3 horses showed up at Santa Anita or like at Aqueduct for the Wood Memorial, they would be heavy favorites in those races. And in this situation, you're going to probably have a Commandment or a Nearly as like a third choice in here, and in a tougher field where, gosh, if they went and were in a softer spot, they might have an easier chance to get to the Derby. Doesn't necessarily mean they're a Derby winner, right? But a lot of times it's even tough. Like your qualifying road could be a little tricky to get there.
Yeah, I mean, look at Doug O'Neill with Pavlovian. He shipped all the way to Fairgrounds to get that horse, basically try to get that horse into the Derby. Meanwhile, Robusta's at Santa Anita preparing for the Santa Anita Derby.
Yep.
And they'll have a good chance. And he might have two horses in there.
And just looking at the speed figures, too, coming out of the Louisiana Derby, they weren't monster speed figures. That's a great point. Like, if one of these horses, like Nearly or Commandment or Chief Wallaby, were to have rerouted and run last weekend at the fairgrounds, they would have been the heavy favorite in that race. There just wasn't a whole lot of the top contenders in there. So, yeah, really tough edition of the Florida Derby this year, a really interesting edition of the Florida Derby this year. We're going to get to that because that's the final race that we're going to preview. Well, let's take a run through a lot of the stakes races on the card. Remember, there's also those special wagers from our friends at First Racing. You have the Coast to Coast Pick 5, and you have the Sunset 6. So the Sunset 6 was always going to be the last three from Gulfstream and the last three from Santa Anita. So you know what it is here at Gulfstream Park. It'll be those final three races. But the Coast to Coast for Saturday will be Gulfstream 11 and 14. And then at Santa Anita, races 3, 4, and 5 right in the middle, which will include the Grade 3 Wilshire there. So you'll get a lot of stakes action in that Coast to Coast on Saturday. Barry, let's take a quick look at some of the earlier stakes races on the card. You've got the Cutler Bay. Now, as we're recording this on Wednesday, the full odds for the entire day aren't out. I did preview a couple of these races with David Aragona and get to check it, some of the odds for a few of these races. This one, the Cutler Bay, has a couple of Brendan Walsh horses that are going to take money. The really interesting horse is the new face, Learn to Discover, who comes in and has faced some top-level runners. The July 19th race, he finished fourth, and the three horses in front of him all came back out of that race since to win a Group 1. So it was a field of four. The three horses who beat him are all Group 1 winners. And he's got ability. He's going to add the blinkers. He's going to be a first-time gelding. But he hasn't raced since August, right? And that's now going to be a while. And he's going to be first-time North America. And he's got to go longer than 6 furlongs. That's the only distance he's ever been in his 4 races. But if you watch the work on March 20th, which, again, it's a 5 furlong turf work, but he worked with Immortalized, and I just thought he was way better in that work. Who knows what that means, but Immortalized, I think, was 3-1 on the morning line here, and Learn to Discover was 9-5. They were the two short prices in this race. So I very much respect Learn to Discover, Barry. I think he's a new face wild card, but from a gambling standpoint, if he's a really short price at 8-5, 7-5, are we supposed to try to find horses to bet against him in this first spot in a few months, first spot in North America, first spot going a little longer? Or do you think he just kind of stands out in this field? I think you were muted for a sec.
He's a tough read because of the fact that you don't really know what you're going to get. I mean, you have the connections and everything, but the horse hasn't run a race here, and there may be other horses that might be just as good. I mean, this body of work isn't overwhelming enough to be like, hey, this horse lays over this field. If that was the case, I would think this horse would be in a different race than this one, or pointing towards a different race. So they're a tricky read. I do kind of like the one, though. Naughty Nix. This horse's body of work is very, very interesting. They came out of the gate running on the synthetic. When they stretched him out, this horse won. Then they went up against Full Effort in October and didn't run that poorly. And, Full Effort came back to win the Ruby Stakes last weekend. Then ran into two buzzsaws in Alpeland and Thousand Sticks.
He's lost 3 times to Alpeland and twice to Thousand Sticks.
And actually 4 times, because he finished behind Alpeland when Thousand Sticks beat both of them.
That's a great
in
point
January. So I
those
think
horses are just a little bit better than him.
Right, at that time, and then getting this experience. I mean, if you look at how this horse was running, they were out wide, didn't get great trips in any of those races, and ran pretty good. I'm not fond of the one post, but it can't hurt in this situation because of the fact that will get this horse into the race. Hopefully, Joel is kind of pushing the button a little bit, so they can get good position. But this horse finishes just as well as anybody in this race, and there's a lot of question marks. A lot of horses that haven't run at this sort of level. You got some recent maiden breakers that are in here, so you're getting kind of a mishmash of all types of horses, and nobody really seems to stand out.
That's the key, I think, that nobody stands out, right? And that's why I think you can make cases for a lot. I have no problem at all with Naughty Nicks, just like what we said. The form is all really solid. I think he might get looked at because he's over 6 on the turf and people may dismiss him, but we just went through the horses that he faced and he ran well in a lot of those races. In 3 races in a row, he's had buyers into the 80s and he's been only beat a couple. He's been within a couple lengths in all those races. The 2 Immortalized, he got perfect trips last time out. He maybe that kind of horse who puts himself in a good spot. I don't really have any knocks on his last couple. The horse who's interesting to me, Barry, is the 4 Sheriff Bart. It's because I think you can go through his whole career, right? And he's always shown ability, but he really put it all together in that last race. So his debut loses to a horse named Turf Star. He actually ran in the Jeff Ruby Stakes, but Turf Star is grade 2 placed. He was second in the Bourbon. He was a horse who actually didn't even run that poorly in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. Hasn't really been able to kind of step forward this year yet. But last year, when running against Turf Star, that was a really tough effort. That was a tough race, and Sheriff Bart ran really well. Second start, this race was taken off the turf, but this is a good race where Very Connected wins, and then Very Connected goes on to run third in the grade 3 Street Sense. Same sort of thing. He hasn't really stepped forward that much this year, but last year at that point, running behind Very Connected, that's a good effort. Then in the October race, look who he's just behind, Thousand Sticks, we just talked about. Following that race, Thousand Sticks wins 3 in a row before the Colonel Liam, and he was right there with Thousand Sticks that day. So I'm going through all of those races. I like them. He shows speed in the first couple. Then he comes from off the pace a little bit October the 26th. It's like you can see that there's talent there, but like he would run in spots. He showed speed in the first couple. Then he came from off the pace a little bit in the third race. On February the 22nd, he had a tough trip that day. He completely misses the break, and it's almost like a blessing in disguise. He was way, way out of it, and they didn't really have a choice what to do. He was just towards the back. They had to sit and then try to make one late run. And he was 7th going into the turn, 6 lengths off. He was really wide heading into the top of the lane. It's one of those trips that like never wins on the grass. It was like a dirt winning trip. And to me, it was like, okay, that was the first start as a 3-year-old. That was the first start after a couple months off. It almost looked like they've been working a lot with this horse to get him figured out in the mornings, right? To get him mature, to put it all together. I just love the way you look at his 4 races and you could see that he has some speed, but they don't want him to be on the lead. But I don't think he's going to come from as far back as he did last time because he missed the break. He'll probably be able to sit somewhere in between there, Barry, and now go second start as a 3-year-old. I just think he's really moving in the right direction. And I feel like he was like 9-2 on the morning line, something in that range. Like if he's above 7-2 in here and maybe your third choice in this race, I think that's a solid price and probably decent value for him.
Yeah. Morning line on this horse is 9-2. So we'll see. I mean, I honestly thought that this horse might actually want to go to the lead.
Sure. He could be what I like is just the options. I just like that we know he has that weapon in his arsenal, but he showed he can come from off the pace and win. So, hey, what happens here? You know, they're not necessarily connections that send horses hard, right? Mott and Alvarado, you think of them more like patient, but sure, look around. Is anybody going? I mean, we're not convinced the 2 outside horses maybe show some speed. I think he'd sit right. I'd love to see him sit right behind them in third or be like very, very close to it. Sheriff Bart's going to be in the mix for me. Anyone else in here you want to mention or talk about?
Behold the King is pretty interesting here to me. I think this horse is just improving. And if you look at the body of work that this horse has, you'll see a lot of italics in those running lines in the form, and that to me spells that they've been running with pretty decent horses that were coming out of races and winning other races. I liked the last race in the Colonel Liam, even though they kind of got a wide trip and didn't do very much. They get a better favorable post position here and might sit the same kind of trip that possibly Sheriff Bart would want to get if they don't get the lead. I mean, my thought is that Alvarado might try to force the issue because they may be the controlling speed here. They may be better than the horses from the outside, like
Yeah.
Blind River.
I think that's for sure. I think they're classier, absolutely, and just better overall.
Yeah, so I mean, this could be a difficult race, especially price wise, because I think everybody's going to be around the same sort of price. I don't, you know, I do think Learn to Discover will probably be favored, but I just don't believe it's going to be a real deep favoritism, you know, like under 8-5, let's say. I don't think that's going to happen.
The morning line price was.
I think he's going to be about 2-1, if that, if not a little higher than that.
Just maybe less and less about him even, and that it is like it's a pretty contentious field outside of him. Like if you took him out of this race, I think the money would be spread around some of the others. So I do think a few of the horses will get bet into this guy, Learn to Discover. Yeah, interesting race. This is the third race on an awesome card, and it starts a pick 5 even that you can play in races 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and there are just a ton of different.
Honestly, before we leave off of this race, even bringing it back.
Oh, David likes this horse.
This horse was running with Ted Nafi, Obliteration, Mythical. I mean, and not running poorly, and got on the turf, finally won. I know the buyer seems a little light, but I can forgive that. And they beat Alpeland in that race.
Yeah, and I was mentioning Turf Star. They put him into the Grade 2 Bourbon after that, and you're absolutely right. If we're using Alpeland as a measuring stick for this field, this horse beat Alpeland. So, and he's a big price. Was he 20-1?
12-1 on the
12-1 on the morning line. So he's a double digits, blinging it back. So those odds will pop up if you're going to pull up your DRF past performances in the next, 12 hours or so from when you're looking at this. The third race, the first of 10 stakes races on the card on Saturday. Let's flip to the fourth. Barry, what's really interesting about this race, it's the Appleton. It's $175,000 stakes race. You got to mention the title sponsor of this, though. It's the Daily Racing Form.
There it is.
The Appleton Stakes presented by Daily Racing Form. You've got Miss the Cut is a multiple graded stakes winner. You've got Carson's Run. He's a multiple grade 1 winner. You've got Quattro Centro, who just won the grade 3 Tampa Bay. You've got Spirit of St. Louis, who's a multiple grade 1 winner, was one of the top turf horses early last year when he won the Pegasus World Cup Turf, and Barry had him at about 8-1. And then he won the Turf Classic in May. 2 out of his 3 races were some of the most prestigious grade 1s in the U.S., although now you look back,
I haven't seen them since,
right? But you wonder now when you look back at those races, like how strong they really were, right? The horses he beat, and was it just a real timing thing where he peaked at the right time? And his last 3 races, he hasn't really been anywhere close to that. But for a $175,000 non-graded stakes, to have a couple of these great multiple grade 1 winners, another multiple graded stakes winner, a horse like Quattro Centro, this race came up really interesting, tough. You're not sure which versions of some of these horses you're going to get, right? Because they're coming off layoffs and they're not in their best form. Missed the cut. We haven't seen Carson's Run since June. He only ran twice last year, but really intriguing.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually surprised seeing that Spirit of St. Louis is a 9-5 favorite on the morning line. I don't think that's actually going to come to fruition. I would think a horse like Beach Gold might take a lot of action, especially being flattered by a few horses, like Laganos. This horse got beat by Laganos back a while ago last year, and Wolfie's Dyna Ghost. I mean, that horse has been keeping really good company and running well.
If
They
you
just
just
need a
toss,
trip.
cross out the Pegasus and the Turf Mile, which are grade ones and just a little too tough for him. Everything else, he's shown up and run really well. He was in good form going into the Turf Mile, and then they gave him a couple months after that. He showed back up. He was third in the Fort Lauderdale. They tried the Pegasus because he's run well at Gulfstream. Yeah, he was in a little tough. He just didn't really fire all that well. He came back in the Canadian Turf and ran well. At and around this level, he's really consistent. And in a race where we do have questions, a lot of question marks about the classier horses, right? Those graded stakes winners I mentioned, he's the opposite, right? He's just really solid, really consistent. You kind of know what you're going to get from him.
Absolutely. And they were running him farther than I think they were accustomed to. I think this horse is a miler, maybe mile and 16th, but mile and eighth is probably a little bit too far for this horse. And then last time, they didn't really get the greatest of trips and kind of came running late. But this is such a better spot. I mean, all the way around, this is such an easier spot than what they've been running in. I think that kind of vaults them to the front of this heat. I also thought Nantasket Beach was interesting.
It's funny. That was David's pick in this race too.
Yeah. I mean, this horse should get the trip. I mean, if you don't believe in prevent going wire to wire because of that horse in Quattro Cento kind of going at it early, the one Nantasket Beach could get an excellent trip here. And this horse is as good a finisher as anybody in here. Like you said, there's a lot of question marks. I mean, you have Carson's Run, who hasn't really done anything since 2024. And
Nantasket Beach and Beach Gold are the two honest
two stalker
horses.
Types.
Well, and they're the horses that are the opposite of the other group. They're the horses who are running recently. They're very honest. You have a good feeling about the effort you're going to get. We're not quite sure how great they are as from a graded stakes standpoint, but there's a reason why those former graded stakes winners are in this race. They're not in their A form right now. They're trying to get it back here. So Nantasket Beach is very similar to me to Beach Gold in this race because they're horses who you feel like you'll get a good run for your money. Nantasket Beach last year rattled off 4 out of 5, won 4 out of 5 races, and earned a 97 buyer speed figure in May at Churchill. And then in July had a little bit of a layoff. And it just feels like it took him a little bit to get back to his best form, what he had last year. And maybe he can keep stepping forward one more time. So he's going to offer you really nice value.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you get rid of the January 10th race in his form looks way better.
Yeah,
and he'd probably be
race.
A different angle. And he was favored that day, too. So if you put a line through that one, this horse is right there with everybody.
Missed the cut. I need to see more from. I think of the horses
too short
with the back class that I'm willing to give Carson's Run more of a chance than I was with like Spirit of St. Louis, I think, or Miss the Cut. Because Carson's Run won a grade 1 at 2, won a grade 1 at 3. And you could just see last year he only raced twice. Like he just wasn't like he was off last year. And in the Fort Marcy, it's not like he ran bad. He was second. And then he came back. Both of his losses were to his stablemate, Deterministic, who's ramping up right now, too. It just feels like the Clement barn is ramping up some of their major players to start having big races in the next few. So he's in this race right next to Spirit of St. Louis. They don't really fire, but this was a tough race. 3 horses came out of that to win next out. Deterministic was in excellent form. You had Far Bridge, who is also going to run. We're going to talk about him. Far Bridge, he on Saturday, we'll speak about him in a minute. Far Bridge comes back to win the Bowling Green out of that. And then Corruption came back out of that race to win an optional $100,000 claim or earned a 96 buyer. So the races were live. I think he's always been a little better than his speed figures. He needs a setup. Maybe he gets it in here because Quattro Central is going to go. I think Prevent's going to go. Tomasello will probably be forward. So I feel like they'll be honest. I like Himberry the most of the horses that we talked about with the back class coming off layoffs. Is there anything else or anyone else you want to hit on in here?
No, I think we nailed it. I mean, I just wish Spirit of St. Louis was coming into this race a little bit better. Those 3 races that they had before the layoff were not very good.
No, not good.
And it's like, what happened? I mean, obviously the layoff is probably going to do this horse a lot of good. And if you're a believer in the layoff theory, this horse should run well first time off the layoff. But at 9-5, I couldn't do it. But at 4-1, possibly, and I think that might be the flip flop there. Is Spirit of St. Louis will be closer to 3-1, and Beach Gold will probably be closer to 2-1. So we'll see how the public bets this, but definitely have to keep the tote board really in focus on this race.
We'll move to the 7th race, the Ghost Sapper, which starts a string of stakes races leading us all the way.
Can't remember when besides the Breeders' Cup has there been 7 stake races on the card,
like in a row like this. Too,
and these aren't state-bred state races either.
No, yeah, real solid. This day is about as good as a day of like deep stakes from top to bottom as there is out there. Before we dive into this one, just wanted to remind all of you, if you have not taken a look at morningline.io, check this out. If you're someone who likes to play stocks, you will really like this. You can purchase ownership, micro shares in horses, but you can buy, sell, trade. So you can actually buy into horses like when they've just had a poor performance and their value's a little lower. And then as they go into bigger races and then win those big races or perform well, their value goes higher. So you can check out like what the price is when you buy in. It shows you the yearly prices, how much it's going up and down. It's different than when you're buying into an ownership group where you're buying micro shares of a horse. You're probably not going to make money back off of it. You're kind of paying for the experience. This is different because you can actually sell and trade. It's not just buying into something. So if you're someone who's a handicapper, plays the races, and if you're into stocks, check this out, morningline.io. Barry, the grade 3 Ghost Zapper is where we'll head next. It's going to be race number 7. And it just looks like a fantastic spot for Grande, who, had run twice before the Wood Memorial. Second in the Wood Memorial, ran really well behind Rodriguez. And when they drew the field for the Kentucky Derby, he was one of those kind of wise guy horses that I think a lot of people were warming up to because he ran really well in the Wood. He was still lightly raced, looked like a horse who could kind of sit close but could also finish. And then unfortunately he had to get scratched, and we didn't see him from April all the way to February of this year. But when he showed back up in February of this year, he ran really well. He actually ran a huge speed figure, a 105 buyer. And generally a horse like this, when they ran a big race off the bench, are horses that I'm trying to beat next time out because I don't know if Grande is going to step forward off that 105 buyer. The issue that I have is that when you look at the rest of the field here, I don't love a lot of the other options in this race to try to go against Grande. So I'm kind of looking at this like if Grande came into this race and even regressed back to like a mid-90s speed figure, that's probably good enough to win this race. I don't know how much I'm going to be betting on this particular race, though, just because I don't love the options other than him. I think it's a really good spot for him. So for me, I wish I had something really interesting and fun and like a good alternative to Grande. I don't. Do you? How do you feel about this race in this spot?
Yeah, it's really Grande's race to win or lose, and I think they're going to win. It's going to be hard to top that kind of speed in this race. There's really not much in here. You got a horse in Steel Sunshine who runs well a lot, but just a hard knocking type, not a grade 1 type like Grande really is.
It's like we kind of know who almost all of these horses are, and it's like Grande, we don't. Like he could be a really, really nice horse and have a great year this year in the older horse division.
I think he's gonna, and that's what they're probably aiming for, is to get this horse started and to get this horse into the top level company so they can win races. There was one horse that I think might merit a second look.
Throw him out there.
Capital Idea. This horse actually runs pretty good. Ever since they switched Barnes to Mott, This horse has been, sitting really good trips, and I think they'll get their trip. It's just a matter of whether they're better than Grande, which I don't really think they are. But if there's anybody that could upset this race, I think Capital Idea might be the one.
You got the Grande heavy favorite in here. You got the prices on that one.
Yes. Grande is wow. Unbelievable. Grande is even money on the morning line. Capital Idea 6-1.
Yeah. And
second choice or third choice, Steel Sunshine is 9-2.
Yeah, I wish we could find a little more pricey options there, but I think too one of the reasons why this race is kind of in the middle part of the card, because they feel like it's going to be a heavy favorite. They kind of kept it out of the late pick 5 and
very lopsided.
This particular race. So we move on to the Orchid, the grade 3 Orchid here. This one is a 1.5 mile turf race, and I mentioned the Clement barn getting some of their top contenders ready to start their seasons. And here's one of them, Bellezza, who won the Grade 2 Flower Bowl last year, actually ran pretty well in the Breeders' Cup. All being said, like split the field there, finished 6th at 20-1 that day, had to come from way, way out of it. Just didn't get the best of trips, but drawn to the outside will make the first start of 2026. Bellezza will be one of the major players in here. Speed Shopper won back-to-back races, including the Clement on Pegasus World Cup Day. That was a good effort. So this is a horse who's in nice form right now. I can see a lot of folks gravitating towards that one. Also in here, Barry, we've got Just Basking, who was a big price at 13-1 when winning the Grade 3 Very 1 on February the 28th, came from dead last and was pretty impressive. That was just her second turf start. So looking back at her, she may have some upside on the grass. Maybe this is a surface that she just wanted all along. So I thought a couple of the horses that'll take a lot of money in here. Who's on your radar?
Yeah, as far as Just Basking goes, I think it was more the distance than anything else. I think that horse is okay on the grass, obviously, but I think they really like that distance. I think that horse loves going long and should get a nice little setup here. But I think actually Donna Clotta is very, very interesting. That last race in the very, very one, in the very one. Yeah, not two verys, two thus. I think they ran, it was such a tough race because this horse early was in between horses and kind of fighting Flavian. And then finally settled when he kind of backed out of that. And this horse came running again. And I think with a cleaner trip, not running in between horses, this horse might be tough. Safi does get his turf runners ready for events like this. And if we can get a price on here, Donna Clotta, I think this horse has a really big shot.
Yeah, I thought this is a competitive race. Like this race, I can make absolutely. Donna Clotta is like one of 4 or 5 that's in the mix for me. I mentioned Speed Shopper. We talked about Just Basking. The thing that is a little intriguing when you take a second look, there's not a lot of speed in here.
Yeah, the one is the only horse, Stark, and they might have the pace advantage.
Yeah, so depending on how you're playing this race, I'm gonna probably include Aria. What price is she, Barry?
8-1.
8-1 on Aria Stark. What do they have for Bellezza? To the
8-5.
Yeah, and she looks like the class of the field, and that makes sense. But it's another situation that we talk about where you have these horses. This is not the end-all, be-all for Bellezza this year. Right? Bellezza wants to do the same sort of thing she did last year. She wants to get back to running at the Flower Bowl and then get to the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf again and run in maybe the New York and some of these big races coming up in May and June. She may not be 100% ready for her biggest race, drawing the outside, maybe having to come from way out of it in a race where there's not that much early speed. I respect a lot about her, but how short do you want to take on her? If they're not going that fast early on in here, and maybe she's not the type that's making her own trip. Does Pratt try to get a little more aggressive from the outside with her?
If you're strictly going on buyer speed figures, this horse lays over this field.
Yep.
It's one of the omni-fig type horses where the last two buyer figures are better than everybody else's last two. And those horses strike at a really high rate. But I bet Balaza at the Breeders' Cup
Me
in
too.
that race. I thought they really thought they had a good chance and just didn't get a great trip from the 11 hole. I
She
thought
looked great too. Remember
she
when we were watching
sure
her in the
did.
paddock and stuff, and the days leading up to the Breeders' Cup, she looked really good. She was one of those horses. I don't pretend to be a clocker and stuff, but when you're watching horses all week long, some horses just make appearances where they really stand out. Like she looked great. I felt like she was doing really well last year going into that race, and she does. I agree with you. Like I don't. I was kind of poking some holes in her, but if you're playing multis, I'm not
You
completely
can't leave her
chucking her out. No,
You
I'm not
can't.
doing that in this race. Like like other races, I'm fine taking shots against big favorites, but I think she could very easily just like be way better than most of this group.
Yeah,
She might just be.
right. She might drown this field, and
Yeah.
and it's an afterthought. But I would definitely give Arya Stark a chance, and probably Donna Colada, and that would be it. But again, that's lightly. I would probably lean more on Balaza. She definitely looks the part here. Miguel Clement does well off these kind of layoffs, so I wouldn't I wouldn't think that there's an issue with that horse coming into this race running well. But they still have to run him.
She killed the Night King. Let's see if she can wire the field in the Grade 3 Orchid. Arya Stark here from the inside as we continue along on this awesome day of racing. Saturday, March the 28th, Florida Derby Day at Gulfstream Park. We move next to the Grade 2 Gulfstream Park Oaks with Kentucky Oaks points up for grabs. The horse that was really impressive winning the Devona Dale in just her second start was She Be Smooth. She won by 6, Barry. She earned a 91 buyer speed figure. And honestly, in a division that's been very kind of lacking for standouts, this 3-year-old filly division. We just saw one of the top fillies lose last week, Bella Ballerina, at Fairgrounds. And she was probably the second in the division. And now just finding out, as you and I were recording this earlier, that Explora is going to have plans change because Mary Rampolini tweeted earlier that Explora, who was running in the fantasy coming up this weekend, is not. She was kind of towards the top of the division. So, I mean, this is a 3-year-old division of 3-year-old fillies that's just looking for horses to jump up and be right at the top of the division. And this lightly raced filly here, if she runs well on Saturday, She Be Smooth. I mean, she is right there at the top.
Yeah. She came into that Devona Dale with a lot of question marks and came out with less.
Yeah.
But
she's
again,
still only two races.
Only 2 starts, right? And it's hard to gauge to see if this horse is going to kind of improve off of that Devona Dale or run the same. If they run the same,
out, Explora, as I was mentioning, elevated temperature, being treated with antibiotics. So she's going to be scratched from the Grade 2 fantasy on Friday, where she's right at the top of this 3-year-old division. So again, a big effort from She Be Smooth this weekend. She's right up there at the top.
Yeah, and she might be that type. I mean, she has the look of that. We've seen pleasure horses kind of similar to this just blossom, like Next and a few others. But you could even make a case for the horse they beat last time in My Missy Mo. This horse was first time off the layoff since December and ran a bang-up race from the 1 hole at 26-1. Who's to say that this horse doesn't springboard out of that and run better here? And I think they might be a lot closer to She Be Smooth than in the Devona Dale. And if that one regresses, this one might be able to pick up the pieces and win this race. Same thing with Prom Queen. Lost to She Be Smooth in the first start, came out of that race and won big. Maybe this horse was better all along. We just need to see it.
She was favored over She Be Smooth in that debut.
Sure was.
And this is the horse who I like. you're taking a shot against She Be Smooth, because I think the plan for her is going to be to
Go.
She
Just
didn't
go.
go in her last start, but go and try to get in front of She Be Smooth here. And there's not that much early speed in this race either. We're trying to pick out the horses that we think can be close, right? Maybe my Miss Mo, who draws the inside, will try to use that. But that race was one that had more speed. Like that race set up way better for the off the pace horses, because when we handicapped that race going in, it looked like you had On Time Girl, who was going to be close. Omaha Bay was very quick. We knew she was going to show speed that day. And then Imperatrice was one we knew was going to be quick. That race was way faster on paper than this one was. It was going to set up way better for She Be Smooth. So she may just be better than this field, but I don't think it's going to set up as well for her as that last race did.
No, I don't think so either. I'm in total agreement with that. And the morning line maker probably thinks so as well, because She Be Smooth is 7-5. Prom Queen is 9-5.
Yeah, there we go.
So I think some of that is bearing out in the morning line. But beyond that, I mean,
what are the two
it's just the chances of She Be Smooth stubbing her toe.
Yeah.
If you can get by She Be Smooth, then it's wide open. If you can't, it's going to be really tough to beat her.
What are the prices on the two inside horses?
Betty's Pearl is 12-1. My Miss Mo is 5-1.
So Betty's Pearl, if you're looking for another long shot horse, I think she's a bit interesting. I don't always love the rail, but she could sit inside and she could finish a little bit. And if you're looking at who she's just faced and you're going race by race, her career debut, she loses to Sneaky Good, who comes out of that race, wins the Sandpiper next out. And she's run well in the Forward Gal and the Honeybee. Like, she's solid. That's a fine effort in that career debut. Then she comes back following that. She's third in a race behind Paradise. She faces Paradise a few different times. That one is a solid runner who has won maiden special weight and then came back and won the Busher. So, you start going through her form and looking at the horses that she's faced, some pretty nice ones, and horses that may have been just a little bit better than her, a little bit more farther along. There's Imperatrice, who we were talking about, that just came back in the Devona Dale. And then once she finally put it all together, a couple of the horses that she's beat have come back and won since. Star Actress came back, ran a little higher by her speed figure, a 77. Joyful Justice came back. She ran a 79. Perhaps that race Betty's Pearl ran and won is a little higher than that 74 on paper. I think I'm going to throw her into the mix, Barry, in some of the multis, because I feel like she can sit close. She might be able to get a nice trip in here, and she's a fair price at double digits.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it might be whoever gets to the lead might win this race. And I kind of like Prom Queen in this spot over She Be Smooth, but we'll see how this all shakes out, especially the way that Gulfstream kind of plays to speed. I like Prom Queen a little bit in this spot. But what do you do with a horse like Just Singing? Because typically when a horse needs to do two different things to beat the rest of the field, I kind of try to stay away from those types, because this horse needs to actually be closer to the pace. They're getting blinkers on, but they also need to finish, and they haven't done that. I do like that race they had in the Rachel Alexandra, and I think they're improving. So that's why I wouldn't totally discount this horse, because they are getting better. They showed some zip last time and was closer to the pace, just was behind a horse in Bella Ballerina, who's pretty tough.
If she runs like a good second or third in here closing, but she can show a little bit more, I'm absolutely going to be using her in the Oaks, right? Like, she would be the type of horse that on a track where you feel better about, like at Churchill, right? Where she broke her maiden. I don't know if Gulfstream is going to be the right type of track for her if she gets too far back, but I hope she runs well enough to get into the Oaks, because she's the type of horse who I'd love to play underneath, at least at a big price, and throw in your exactas and tries, because she's going to come closing and pass half the field almost in every race that she's in. She just needs the setups, and maybe it's the blinkers that'll help get her more into the race. I agree with you. Like, I will probably throw her in some way in here, but I'm absolutely keeping an eye on her if she can make it to Churchill.
Yeah, I think it reminds me a little bit of Drexel Hill, and how
Yep.
that horse kind of runs. If we can get that sort of effort consistently out of this horse, and that horse keeps getting better, I think she might be okay going down the road.
So now we're going to be able to move on into the late pick 5 sequence. Don't forget something to pull up, because I know on days like Florida Derby Day and as we get closer to the Kentucky Derby, I always have a lot of people that are sending me texts or messages or their calls. They'll say, "Hey, you like a horse in the Santa Anita Derby? I'm heading out there with some friends and some of my buddies from high school," or people who you look at the text and it's like, "Oh yeah, I heard from you last year on Kentucky Derby Day," right? Like, and like maybe like a happy birthday in there somewhere, but then like happy, like just a
Who you
couple
like?
times, yeah, a couple times a year. If your friends like to place the races on the big days, but maybe they don't want to dive into the past performances themselves, let them know about DRF Newbie. Or maybe that's you. Maybe you're someone who's new to horse racing. You like watching the shows, you like picking it up and learning, but you're not completely, always informed as to everything happening in the past performances. Check out DRF Newbie, graphs, simplified past performances. There's the AI chat box in there that you can ask for help. And then this will help you take the next step to the Daily Racing Form past performances that we look at that can be a little intimidating if you're someone that's new, if you're someone who doesn't know a whole lot about it and you see all the numbers and the lines and the bars and you don't know what it is. The way that DRF Newbie is set up, the platform, it's much more user friendly to new players. The colors, like the graphs, everything, it's just easier to follow along. Check it out at newbie.drf.com and use your mobile for that so you can check out all the features on Newbie. So we've got an all stakes pick 5 to close things out. It starts with the Sanibel Island here, 7.5 furlongs on the turf course. These are 3-year-old fillies, Barry. Let's mention some of the top players in here. I mean, thought it's a pretty competitive race when you sort of go through the field. Super Landslides coming off a win on the turf. Vacoma Views coming off a win on the turf last time out. Sakine is trying turf for the first time. You have Tam Tam is another horse who's coming off of a win on the grass last time out. Connect the Stars stepped up and found Graded Stakes Company a little bit too tough last time. You've got Backring Buzz, who is trying to transfer back to the turf of a couple races on the synthetic most recently. She actually has a pretty solid race behind Sister Troyenne back in October at Keeneland. You have Legina, who comes over from Tampa. Maybe a little disappointing with that effort last time out. I wanted to see a bit more from her, but I think this is a pretty good spot for her. And Secret Hideaway and Smexy, there are a couple of these Brendan Walsh horses. We just mentioned one in the third race earlier that are going to be Brendan Walsh, first time in North America, haven't run since last year, like August or September. And these horses are really interesting and kind of major players in their races, whatever you want to do with them. So I thought this was a really hard way to start the pick 5. Curious, what is the betting board look like? How are the odds? Who are the favorites in this race on the morning line?
Morning line favorite is Secret Hideaway, and I get that because this horse was running in Group 2, Group 3 company overseas, and running pretty well, just, against better horses, and a lot of them. They were in a 23-horse race.
Yeah. I mean, you finished 15th and you're still beating 7-8 horses, right? Like, and behind True Love, who we talked about being a future Group 1 winner, Lenny Liu, who just came back to win over the weekend, some really nice horses.
Yeah. So you can't really ignore that horse, but 2-1 in a race where they're coming here, it's always a question mark, especially first time. Usually second time, if they do stay, they run a lot better, no matter who it is, typically. But we'll see. I mean, this horse should probably be favored just because of the body of work, but I'm just not a big believer. I do like Tam Tam quite a bit, though. This horse came off the bench and ran February 7th on the turf for the first time and won a much improved effort from the dirt races. And I think this horse wanted to go long on the turf all along.
I think sometimes, too, with horses like this, like, they're good. So they give them a few shots on the dirt because they might be good enough to be like an Oaks horse, right? But realistically, the turf was always going to be the surface that this horse was going to come back to, and you just see the kind of difference in the turf race versus the dirt races, which were fine. They weren't bad at all.
And
right?
3 out of the 4 times the source was favored.
Yeah, because you see this a lot. I think at this point early where, hey, we know this horse is really good. Let's see how good. And let's try to, stack her up with some of the best horses on the dirt. And okay, we gave her a few. Now her ultimate future is going to be on the turf. And that was just a really nice effort for her to, make her, I think, a top player in this race. What's her price?
She is 5-1 on the morning line, which is perfect. And I think this is the time to get that kind of price on her, because I don't think she's going to be this sort of price going forward, especially if she runs well here. She's probably going to jump up into that next echelon of horses that are going to be running in these kind of events all year long, like at the Derby and the undercard and all that kind of stuff. But I think this is the time to get the price on this horse. If you're going to get it.
Yeah, because she's been favored every time, but this is a horse they paid $975,000 for. So, they had very high hopes for her. A horse who I think is a little bit interesting, and I feel like she'll be a fair price in here because she's a Florida bred. She faced Florida Bred Company in her debut, and then she faced like a softer, like maiden optional claiming group in her second start. I like that effort from Super Landslide. And, you look at her dam. Her dam was a grade 1 winner. She won the Natalma, and she was a precocious horse. So I'm not surprised to see her in a stakes race like this. I think she'll fly a little under the radar and be a really fair price in here. She was fifth, about 3 wide going into the turn. She made an early 3 wide move to the front, and then she kept going. And it's funny because when I was watching the race, because she was wide, I kept waiting for her to stop after she makes this early move. Like, she was wide. She makes the early move. She's going to get tired and stop. And she didn't.
Kept going.
She really did keep going. And I thought it was pretty impressive. So she's one that's in the mix for me. What is she on the morning line, Barry?
10-1.
Thought that she would be double digits or so. Another horse who I feel like is going to be a top contender, probably get bet. This barn is just solid, especially with young horses like this, lightly raced. George Weaver, Vacoma View was a nice winner on February the 21st. What do you think about her in here?
That horse really kind of confuses me. They didn't run that well on the synthetic, and then, or they actually did run well. It just wasn't very fast. Then they come back and go wire to wire. These horses always give me fits because I never really understand what they're going to do in a race like this, where everybody kind of looks the same. I mean, you have that Sakane who runs similarly, Lagina runs similarly, and it's really about the experience. And this horse does have 2 runs in decent company, but I'm not sure how they stack up right now against this field. I would say if this was this horse's 4th start, I would feel more confident, and I think everybody else would too. That's why the price is what it is.
You don't really know what they are after that kind of a victory where you just
right
the lead, right? That's hard for me.
Exactly, and it seemed like they got a fairly easy lead. I mean, the splits look sort of slow, but you never know. I mean, obviously this horse has some talent. There's a bullet coming into this race, meaning this horse is probably in very good form. It's just a matter of you thinking they can beat horses like the outside horses, Secret Hideaway and Smexy.
It's another race where Brendan Walsh has the key with these horses that we don't know a whole lot about. We haven't seen them. They face tougher company overseas. They're going to come into the Brendan Walsh barn for the first time and come off of a long layoff. But from a class standpoint, they look better than who they face. It's just from a gambling standpoint, how short are you willing to take on horses like, Smexy and Secret Hideaway? Barry and I mentioned a couple of fun alternatives if you're looking for some prices. Barry likes Tam Tam. I thought the 2 Super Landslide was really interesting and could offer you some nice value in there. So
I also thought it was interesting that Junior Alvarado is not riding Lagina here.
It's a good point.
and went to Tam Tam.
After a couple races in a row on
Yeah,
that one.
and the improvement, and that's what really attracts me to Tam Tam quite a bit, is that improvement once they hit the turf. Usually there's another jump up, especially off the layoff like this. These are the kind of horses that I like to center my day around. I'm not too sure on Tam Tam, but they're definitely on the radar as a horse that I might end up keying quite a bit.
Let's turn the page to race number 11. This one is the Army Mule, 4-year-olds and up, $175,000 stakes, 7 furlong sprint on the dirt. The couple to mention right off the top, you have Scotland, who we saw in some tough graded stakes races last year. The race where he ran second to Bookham Dano was very good in the 4-go. Didn't fire his best shot last we saw him in his last couple races towards the end of the year. Concrete Glory is very, very fast, capable of very quick fractions. Back him up was a good second in the Hooper behind Knightsbridge, but then was well defeated behind Grande last time out. Rolando will add some pace to the party in here. Jack's Promise is in really nice form. He's won 3 of his last 4. And in that race on February 21st, Barry, the Gulfstream Park Sprint, that was a good day for me. I had a good one that day. Jack's Promise beat Damon's Mound, and I was able to score on some of the late exotics that day. Shout out to Marcus Hirsch from DRF. He actually had him picked on top in the DRF weekend game plan also. So Barry, Macho Music, Owen Almighty are familiar faces too, right? We know these horses from last year. Owen Almighty was in the Kentucky Derby. Macho Music won the Grade 2 Pat Day Mile. So horses that are capable at the graded stakes level for sure. Who do you want to start with in this really kind of tricky 7 furlong dirt sprint?
Yeah, this is a really tough race, and the morning line bears that out. The 3-1 morning line favorite is Macho Music.
Yeah.
Which I don't think that horse is going to be favored at post time, but you never know. Owen Almighty is really interesting to me. Coming off 2 poor efforts, I think this horse is just better than that.
You almost wonder
whatever
too,
happened.
He had a couple months off, and sometimes it's just like he's running in those farther races that are just longer, and maybe it just took some out of him, and he needed more time off than those couple months between May and August, right?
And the horses that beat him, I mean, Barbadian Runner is good, Neo Equos is good, Barnes is good, Captain Cook is questionable, but that horse was right behind that one. So I always thought that Owen Almighty was a 1-turn miler.
Me too.
And they really haven't got back to that. But I think this is the closest thing in a field that they probably can handle. They might get the trip because I don't think they want to be on the lead. They should get a nice stalking trip from the outside, timing the speed. There's plenty of it in here with Rolando, who's very, very quick, and Concrete Glory, who will probably be on the engine too. Macho Music will have to get involved. Their best races have been when this horse is on the front end. So that leaves a few horses kind of lining up behind them. I thought Owen Almighty was very interesting, even though they're 7-2 on the morning line, a little short. But Back 'em Up is the one that really interests me quite a bit here. I think this horse doesn't really want the lead. I think they need a target, but they just can't be from too far back. A nice stalking trip behind, like Concrete Glory would suit this horse to a T. They should be a pretty decent price, and they're 12-1 on the morning line. There's only 3 double-digit horses in this race. Back 'em Up, Rolando, and Dream of Kona is 30-1, and Rolando's 15-1. But I think Back 'em Up stands a way better chance of winning than the morning line gives them, especially running against Grande last time. Knightsbridge, you could kind of put a line through all of Knightsbridge races.
And he was about as close to him as anyone's been.
Exactly. And prior to that, this horse was obviously keeping good form, won 2 in a row while stepping up. So I think people might be sleeping on this horse because of the fact that they were running in those $25,000 races earlier. But this horse has seemed to come around, and I think this horse is pretty good.
One that I want to mention is a horse who I just feel like is going to get a really nice trip in here, and that's Pentathlon. So he, to me, is a very Shug McGahee horse. You just look at this horse, who they've never really pushed into stakes. He's never really like, he just looks like the horse that they've taken time with. And he's always run pretty well. You go from early on in his career and you can see like, okay, he just doesn't fire in his career debut. And then other than that, he's right into a couple good third, second. Then he breaks his maiden at Saratoga and like his fifth start. He runs okay his first couple starts against winners. To me, it was like early, middle of last year where I started to notice his horse a little bit. He had some trouble in this April race at Churchill Downs. Then he comes back at Saratoga. He wins on a sloppy track. They got caught up early on in his early in his career on the lead a few times. I don't think he wants to run that way. He wants to sit back and make one run. And at 7 furlongs, I feel like this distance is just way better for him to do that. He doesn't get as lost on the lead. Start going through his races from that win at Saratoga last year. Then he runs into Hold My Bourbon. Well, in that particular race, Hold My Bourbon just was one on the front end. So nobody was passing that day. It was not a bad effort finishing behind that runner. Coming out of that race, you see a race where he has a little bit of trouble, but they try the grass. Then he wins, and they go into the Cigar Mile. I'm okay putting a line through the Cigar Mile. He shows back up this year with one of his better performances on February the 15th. And now all of a sudden, look at his last like 5 or 6 races here, where you see now he's won 3 of his last 6. One of the races on the turf, I'm okay putting a line through. So he's won 3 of his last 5 races on the dirt. And the first race this year, I'm okay excusing the Cigar Mile when he just didn't really fire down inside. I think he looks good when you start like dissecting his form overall. And I feel like he could get a really nice trip in here, Barry. And I would not be shocked if he could run back to that 94 or step forward off of it, because it's not such a big figure where you're like, okay, it's faster than anything he's ever run, or it's too fast for him. He may be able to step up, and this field, there's not a monster in here. It's super competitive. There's a lot of horses that could win. I think it's a good spot for him. What's his price? Is it like 8-ish to 1?
That horse is, you nailed it, 8 to 1.
Boom. That's perfect for me. Above 6. I think that's where he should be in this type of a race.
Yeah, the thing about this race is nobody's very consistent. That's what makes it so tough, because any one of these horses literally can step up and win this race if they get the right trip. Everything kind of aligns. So, the morning line favorite is 3 to 1 in this race. That's all right there. It tells you, right? That tells you exactly what it is. I mean, 3 to 1 is not much of a favorite. And you have Owen Almighty, who's a huge question mark, at 7 to 2. I mean, if you're not into that, this could get wide open.
And I bet the 3 shortest prices, are they the 3 outside horses? Jack's Promise, Macho Music, and Owen Almighty?
That is correct. Actually, Jack's Promise is 6 to 1. Scotland 9 to 2.
So he's one of after those top 2, but 3 of the top contenders are all drawn to the outside too, and they could all be trying to push it a little early. So, man, if that happens and they're kind of fast and wide and heating things up, then you could get some real chaos in this race where Barry mentions back him up.
Scotland is one of those horses that you don't know what to do. It's very sort of consistent with the closing, but they just don't win a whole lot.
I know.
But, these are the type of races where horses like that step up on a big day and win at like 6 or 7 to 1. And you're like, how did I not have that horse?
Because he's certainly good enough to win.
He's good enough. Well, definitely. More than
But it's just trip. Will he get it? He's probably one of those horses that I throw in on my pick 4s and pick 5s.
I think this is one you kind of have to go deep a little bit, because it could go a lot of different ways.
The Army Mule, not an easy race in the middle of this late pick 5 sequence at Gulfstream on Saturday. Let's move to the Sand Springs. We have fillies and mares, 4-year-olds and up, going a mile and a 16th here. What's kind of interesting about this race, you have some graded stakes winners like Hang the Moon, who got back into winning form. She's a 6-year-old who won a couple of graded stakes in Southern California. You have a horse like the One Maggie Go, who is a group stakes winner in Argentina. She was highly regarded here, but she finally got her first victory in the U.S. It was a pretty nice win on February 21st at Gulfstream Park. Sweet Rebecca was a horse who we saw in graded stakes company, found those foes a little too tough, but she won her first start as a 5-year-old and her first start back in the Brendan Walsh barn after spending some time with Chad Brown. And then you have a horse, Barry, like Silver Moonlight, who's just kind of honest, pretty sharp, always shows up. And Candy Quest feels like a horse who is a good fit at this level. She was favored in the very one, and she was behind Just Basking. But, you look back to some of her races last year behind Laurel Lynn and when she's running with Lush Lips and Fion, those are good efforts. So I feel like those are a couple of the major players in here. Who do you want to start with?
This race is very tricky because there's quite a few horses in here and they all sort of look the same. And if you're able to kind of weed out some of the non-contenders in here, to me, it looks like it might chalk out, unfortunately. And that would be Candy Quest. It's a horse I like here, Silver Moonlight, and then Sweet Rebecca. And those three horses on the morning line are 5-2, Sweet Rebecca, 3-1, Silver Moonlight, and 7-2, Candy Quest.
Yeah.
And they look the part, honestly.
They do.
It's just a big field, so sometimes everything can get jumbled. But especially Candy Quest, the types of horses that horse has been beaten by, any one of those horses would be odds-on favorite in here without any issue. You have Lush Lips, Fion, Laura Lynn, She's So Spicy in there. I mean, this horse has all the makings of a horse that's going to run good in this race.
Yeah, I think Candy Quest is a top player. I picked Silver Moonlight on top. She's just super honest, right? She's right there in that top tier that we're talking about. I thought her race last time out, when running right behind Lush Lips and Classic Q, was really good. That was her first start in a couple months. We didn't really know how good she was because she was in nice form, but she had been winning in 3 straight races when she was favored against softer company. When she stepped up, she showed, hey, look, she fits with horses like this in stakes, in low-level graded stakes for now, maybe even higher down the line. So I'm fine giving Silver Moonlight a shot.
I mean, you should put an asterisk next to the winner of that race, Lush Lips. So she was so much better than everybody else.
I know.
That you could almost kind of throw that one out. But Silver Moonlight ran excellent despite all of that. Nobody was beating Lush Lips, that's for sure.
What's the price on the one, Maggie Go?
She is a big price here. Maggie Go is 6-1.
Yeah,
I mean, not a big price, but everybody after that, right, is sort of the same. So I think it's going to kind of bear out that way. I don't think we're going to have an overwhelming favorite. Those 3 horses are probably going to be around similar prices.
I couldn't get, like, there were only 4 or 5 horses that I could even kind of make cases for in here. And not that I would want to bet all of them or use all of them, but this was a race where I had a harder time finding a horse that I thought was going to be a big price.
Right.
As like a live long shot, because to me, it was like, okay, I could see Maggie Go running well. Sweet Rebecca, sure, I think fits very well here. Hang the Moon wouldn't shock me with some of that back class. We talked about Silver Moonlight and then to the outside, Candy Quest. I just couldn't get around them. Like, if it wasn't one of those horses in here, it would really surprise me.
Yeah, that's how I felt about it too, and that's why I say it's probably going to chalk out somewhat.
Yeah.
So this would be obviously a race that I would probably go a little skinnier and maybe use just those 3 or maybe even 2 of those 3.
Yeah, maybe you pick which of the couple shorter ones you like here. You could take a little bit of a stand in the Sand Springs. For me, Silver Moonlight was the one I had on top. Barry, I think you started with Candy Quest, and I feel like Candy Quest has a lot of class too. They're going to be 2 of the top contenders in here. I'll probably include Hang the Moon, just some of those West Coast races I remember that were pretty good, and I like how she kind of bounced back into form for Safi last time out. That's a look at the Sand Springs race number 12. 2 more on this marathon card Saturday at Gulfstream Park. Thanks to Barry Spears for joining me. Barry, when are you going to be doing horse racing happy hour this week with Louie? Tell us where else can we find you and some of the work that you've got going on this weekend.
Yep, this week we're doing SoCal Saturday on Friday as usual at 2 p.m. Eastern. We're going to go over the whole entire Santa Anita card, and then after that, I am heading down to Gulfstream Park to go
Awesome.
to the Florida Derby. So I'll be there to witness all these stake races for you.
Barry will be helping us out, sending some pictures and some videos throughout the day. Make sure you're following us on the Daily Racing Form social medias as we definitely try to take advantage of Barry when he's out there and see if he can do a little work for us and get us some footage. So Barry, my friend, good luck this weekend when you're heading out there. Let's see if we can close out strong with some winners in the Pan American and the Florida Derby. Pan American going a mile on the turf course here, grade 3 event. You have Corruption from the inside, who wasn't able to get towards the lead with Wolfie's Dynagos last time out, but he's quick. He does a lot of his good running on the front end. You've got Dashman, who I think's a bit interesting, a horse that you and I have talked about a lot at some of these longer distances. He's intriguing. Farbridge is the class of this field. He's the horse to start out with. As I mentioned, you see some of these heavy hitters from the Clement barn starting their years this week and in the next couple weeks, and he is one of them. And from just a class standpoint, Barry, this is a good spot for him and a good starting spot for him if they just want to have a soft confidence building victory, and then they could, push him into some of those graded stakes that will be in May and in June and July, some of those races that he's run well in prior years. This could be a horse that goes to the Turf Classic, and we see in the Manhattan and United Nations and some of those races going a little bit longer. And he's run really well at Gulfstream Park before. He's 4 for 4 over this turf course. He does feel like the class of the field. But again, kind of similar to some of these horses that are starting out. The last 2 times we saw him last year, he wasn't at his best. And he did not fire. And one of those races, he was the heavy favorite and he didn't fire. And then he was just okay in a field of 5 behind Rebels Romance. So I completely respect him. I think he is hands down the horse to beat. Like an A effort from him is better than an A effort from all of these horses. But we know we're going to get that A effort first time out of the box. And it's going to be probably a lot shorter price than what we want to take on him.
Yeah. It's going to be hard for me to take a horse like Farbridge, despite, what his numbers look like. I mean, there's got to be a point where this horse is just not going to be as good as he was.
He's also kind of quirky with how he needs to be ridden.
Yes, remember, very much so.
You got to make him like an early move on him. He doesn't really want to get taken a hold of all too much. Like he's a little different. And Joel's got along with him really well and was able to make some of those early moves. But he's not just a real push button horse either. For a horse who's going to be a short price, who didn't really run that well the last couple times we saw him. A lot of class, but not just like roll the ball out there and let him go type of horse, right?
Exactly. And I think that might work against him here, especially now that Rosario has abandoned him too. That kind of is interesting because the horse that Rosario lands on, I kind of like a little bit. This horse, didn't embarrass himself against some really good horses, including Carson's Run, Logano's Highway Robber.
It's funny. I didn't know this, but I could have bet $1 million that you were going to pick this horse because I do too. I just like when I was handicapping this race and like knowing that we were going to talk, it was like I just bet he's going to be on this horse with me too. We talked about this horse a lot before. This is a really nice spot for him going longer like this.
Yeah, and he's second choice at 3-1 on the morning line, and coincidentally, Farbridge is 8-5. So basically, Rosario's getting off the favorite to ride the second choice. But I think Dashman might end up sitting a better trip, just slightly. And that might be all the difference. I like that bullet on March 20th going into this race. This horse has been training lights out since he's been in Florida. So I expect a really good effort out of Dashman. The other
Dashman
horse,
too, while we're talking about him,
yeah,
he runs on February the 28th. It's his first start since August, and it's going a mile and a 16th. It's a total prep for him. It's way shorter than where he's at his best, right? He's much better going mile and 3/8, mile and a half, the mile and 5/16, those types of races. So I'm not even worried at all about that February 28th race from a finishing standpoint. One, because way shorter. It's just to get in that race and to get him some fitness. And if you look at it and you go, oh, he was 4th in this optional claimer, that was a strong race. The winner, Cruise the Nile, first of all, he's won three in a row, and he went gate to wire that day. So he was right on the front end. Nobody passed him. The runner-up was Burnham Square from last year, who won the Bluegrass. He's a grade 1 winner, and he's going to be a really good distance turf horse now that they've changed him to going long on the turf. So finishing right behind those two, Chapman's Peak is not a bad horse either.
No.
He's graded stakes placed. So while that race was just an
option, and he was wide. He got a wide trip that day too.
Chasing Lone Speed.
Yes.
It was a perfect setup prep kind of race. I might play one ticket where I single this horse in some of the late exotics, just because this is the type of race where if I don't love the other favorite, I do like him as one of the other short prices. I feel really strong about his chances. What's the price on Corruption?
7-2, and so, rightfully so, because that horse has such a pace advantage. It's just a matter of whether they can slow it down enough to beat this field, and they might be able to do it, especially with Johnny V riding the way he is, especially on the front end. I would definitely upgrade this horse's chances a lot.
I think that might be how I play this race, is using those two.
Yeah.
Trying to beat Farbridge and going Corruption and Dashman, because we get the speed horse. And then if Corruption isn't quite ready, if someone's pushing him, we've got Dashman second start off the bench, like ready to fire his big effort. And
you know what? There's a horse in here that is kind of wacky, but I may include his brother Kenny.
Sure. He's got a little backlash too.
He definitely has some backlash, and it's really, a dart throw or, just a guess if this horse can take to the turf. Jose D'Angelo does a really good job of finding turf horses where you might not think they would be.
Yeah.
This horse is a few good workouts, especially the last one on February 20 on the turf. That kind of tells me that they may have tipped their hand that this horse might be better than expected on the turf. Ran some good races, ran well in the Indiana Derby last year, and really hasn't run a bad race since until you get to the Pegasus World Cup, which they were just out wide, bumped in the beginning, and never really had a chance.
So many horses just didn't fire in that race either. Right, almost a lot of that field.
Field didn't fire.
I mean, the only two horses that really ran their good races were Skippy and White Avario, right? And actually, the race is already coming back strong. We saw British Isles, who finished 5th. We weren't sure how tough it was going to be, but he came back. He won the big cap, and Skippy came back and he won at Oaklawn Park. He's in really nice form right now. I think this is the first time he's ever won 3 in a row in his career as a 7-year-old now. So, this may be the race where we can take a shot against Farbridge if he is the short price. Barry's got a fun long shot for you to include Brother Kenny, who's going to try the turf for the first time. And I thought we both feel pretty solid about Dashman and Corruption running good races in here at maybe better price than Farbridge. And, Dashman has the recent race advantage as well. Things look really good on paper for him. Dashman, who we started with, we both talk about Corruption, both a little cold on Farbridge, and including a fun long shot, Brother Kenny. I'll mention the horse who I just like. He made me money last year at Churchill Downs, Echo Lane, and he's one of those horses who's a really fun long shot try horse. Throw him in. What's his price on the morning line here, Barry?
Echo Lane. The guy is 8 to 1. 8 to 1 on the morning line.
Something in that range. Third start of the form cycle now. He's one of those horses who just gets himself in a good spot almost all the time, and he can fall into wins.
Yeah, I mean, you should get every bit of that 8 to 1 on that.
He might be higher.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked if he is. And I just think he's a fun bottom of exotics horse. If you're going a little deeper and looking for another one to throw into your pick 4s or pick 5s, Echo Lane. Anyone else in here, Barry, you want to mention or take a look at?
No, I think we touched on the contenders here.
Yep. We move to an awesome renewal of the Florida Derby, the Grade 1 Florida Derby. It's going to go as race number 14 on Saturday. And in this race, on paper, it does look like you've got Chief Wallaby, you've got Commandment, you've got Nearly as the top three. And I will give Puma a little bit of love because he did win the Tampa Bay Derby, and his 3 races overall are not bad, and he seems like he's moving forward. Barry, can you, I believe the 5 or Rebels, Redland Rebels is going to scratch. I'm going to run an Oaklawn. Can you make a case for anybody in here other than the 4 I mentioned?
No.
I don't think so either. So that's kind of the first. Yeah, I think that's the first way to do the handicapping of this race. And maybe we're wrong, but I can't myself. And I'm someone who loves making a case for any 20, 30 to 1, 15 to 1 shot that I can. In this race, I think that there is a definite top 4. And I do think that the top 3 are for sure more proven right now than just about everyone. As I pointed out, they're number 2, 3, and 4 in David Aragona's Derby Watch. They're the number 2, 3, and 4 choices in the Kentucky Derby Future Pool. And over the last 20 years, this is a shout out to NBC Sports research team. Thanks to Pete Rotundo for sending this over my way. Past 20 years, except for 2020, which was the COVID year, the Florida Derby has been the most frequent final prep race for Kentucky Derby winners. 7 winners over the last 20 years have prepped in the Florida Derby. 4 from the Arkansas Derby. So this weekend is the big ones that have had the most winners coming out of those races. Santa Anita Derby 3, Jeff Ruby Stakes 2, Bluegrass, Louisiana, and Derby only 1.
Yep.
Altogether, and none from the Wood Memorial. So 3 of the 4 Kentucky Derby current favorites right now. If they were to run the race right now, these horses would all be some of the top contenders. They're all in this race. So let's watch the Fountain of Youth because it's an important race, Barry, because you have Commandment and you have Chief Wallaby both coming out of it. So they were the 4 and the 6 in this race. And the thing is, I thought they both ran really well. Like it to me, I can completely understand anyone that likes Chief Wallaby more because this was Chief Wallaby's second start. He's the number 6. Commandment is the 4. So we can see going into the turn, Chief Wallaby gets kind of beat out of a spot. He's got to go a little farther back, and he's wider. Whereas Commandment gets to save ground, but he also does get shuffled back a little bit. He doesn't quite get the position that he wants exactly. But it's funny, they end up not too far away from each other. Commandment's a little bit in front of Chief Wallaby here. But those 2 top contenders are going to, again, be top contenders this weekend. And very, I have no knocks on really either one of them. I think they're going to be 2 of the top horses if they run well in here heading to the Derby. I think Commandment is just a little farther along in the race that we're watching, and Chief Wallaby runs well. But I don't know if I'm on the camp that Chief Wallaby is way better, because I know some people are talking about it like that, oh yeah, you definitely wanted Chief Wallaby coming out of the Florida Derby. Right here, they're next to each other, which is pretty awesome. They just start looming up together. Wallaby's got to go wide. Commandment goes inside. Commandment gets an opening, but I think they both finish well. And following the race, you could see Irad really does make sure that Commandment gets an education. He asks him well past the wire and gives him a strong gallop out.
Well, not only that, he kind of raced him in between because he could have went around.
Yeah.
Chief Wallaby, and he opted to go inside. And like you said, I think that gave this horse a little bit of an education on how to pass horses, and that might make all the difference on Derby Day, honestly.
So watch here when we pick up and they come back around the turn. So this is well into the gallop out. You'll see Chief Wallaby's kind of in front of Commandment here, and watch Irad on Commandment inside. It's his ears perk back up.
Yeah,
here.
No, he's
and he wants to go more. That was a little strange, and I remember David mentioning it right after the race. Aragona, he posted about it.
Well, yeah, it looked like Irad couldn't stop.
Right, which was okay, this horse is really he wants to run. So, I think both of these horses deserve a ton of respect. I do think Chief Wallaby is going to get bet more than Commandment, though. And I almost wonder if Commandment might be the value in the race.
I hope so.
5 to 2-ish again, right in that range, and the money really does come through on Chief Wallaby. I think, to me, of the 2 of them, I actually did prefer Commandment better going back because I think he'll be a better price in here.
Same. I felt the same way. I thought that Fountain of Youth was excellent,
Yeah,
and he can only kind of move forward off of that, especially when they go longer like they are in the Florida Derby. I think it's just going to accentuate that kick. Same thing with Chief Wallaby. I
I
mean, he's
know.
only a half step slower, if you want to say that. But they're very evenly matched, and I also think Nearly has the same sort of potential.
He's better than I thought he was when I went back into his races. Like, I remember going into the second start, like the January 2nd race, and being like, okay, and I think trying to beat him with Confessional, and then not sure how great he was. And I remember going into the Holy Bull coming off of his 97 Beyer and wondering, was it a legitimate figure? I loved Bravaro. Bravaro got a great trip, and he had
didn't get it
zero
done.
chance to contend with Nearly Late. He is better than I thought. And I do think these three are a legitimate top three. I hope they all run well, because they may, like, if they did, they could be three of the top 5 betting choices in the Derby.
Well, I mean, the Holy Bull doesn't look visually as good of a race as the Fountain of Youth, and I think that's going to taint Nearly's odds, and he's probably going to be the biggest value of the three.
Because he is
the
3-1 on the morning line, right?
I think he's going to be bigger, yeah, and I think he's going to be a bigger price than all 4 of them. I think the Puma is going to take some money too, but Nearly is 3-1, Commandment's 5-2, Chief Wallaby's 2-1, and the Puma's 9-2 on the morning line. So, I mean, if you look at the Puma, you could even say, all right, well, he lost to Chief Wallaby first time out, came out of that race, lost to Renegade in the Sam F. Davis, and then won the Tampa Bay Derby and beat Further Ado, who's a very excellent horse. I mean, you could really make a case for any 4 of these. It's just a matter of preference, honestly.
The Puma, who won the Tampa Bay Derby, that was his first career victory, but he was not far behind Chief Wallaby in his debut. He was favored over Chief Wallaby in his debut. So, yeah, I think I stack them Commandment, Chief Wallaby, Nearly. I mean, slightly, but
close.
But from like a gambling standpoint, it's hard when they're going to be separated by not much. It's hard not to look at Nearly and Commandment as maybe like the better prospects if they're going to be shorter and if a little more money comes in on Chief Wallaby.
Yeah. And I think that's going to happen. I think Chief Wallaby is kind of the buzzy horse.
Me too.
And
he is just better than them in this third race. He
got to prove it
together, but I don't think that there's going to be like a whole lot of separation. I really think that the conversation coming out of the Fountain of Youth felt like it'll be more tilted towards Chief Wallaby. And I'm just excited for this race. This is as good of a prep as we've had so far, where we've got 3 of the top 4 right now on most people's list. Maybe you're not your personal favorite, but as far as the more proven horses and who could be one of the favorites come Kentucky Derby Day, it may come out of this race. We've seen 7 Kentucky Derby winners in the last 20 years come from the Florida Derby at Gulfstream Park, and it very, very well could be another one this year. We couldn't get to any of the bigger prices. We thought it was the top 4 in here and really kind of the top 3, as we both lean towards Commandment maybe being the horse who gets kind of forgotten about and could be one that offers value in an evenly matched field.
Well, you know, one thing to keep in mind is especially with these 3-year-olds going into the Derby, is the 100-point Beyer.
Yeah.
That's a real key and a real thing when evaluating these horses. I mean, there's year after year, the horses that have at least one usually run very, very well in the Derby. And we got 2 horses in this race that already have one. If they pair up another, they might be tough come Derby Day.
Just on like a little bit above the rest of this group right now. And sometimes that's the case where they're just faster, can Nearly step up into that stratosphere here. The triple digit Beyer speed figures. Florida Derby Day, Saturday at Gulfstream Park. Don't forget about the Road to the Derby package, where you can get PPs for the full day, Clocker reports, PPs for Arkansas Derby Day, and for all of the big prep racing days coming up over the next few weeks, as well as Oaks and Derby. Barry, thank you so much for taking the hour and a half to go through the 10 stakes races on the card. We have so much extra help for you on the Daily Racing Form YouTube if you need. race previews. I'm going to do a pick five pick five preview with David Aragona coming up. I know David and Mike and Ashley have previewed some of the races individually. I previewed a few with David earlier on Wednesday. So we are all ready for a huge Saturday at Gulfstream Park. We will also be giving you some PPs throughout the weekend for some of the big races. I think Saturday we have free coast-to-coast pick five pass performances. There's a pick six carryover at Santa Anita on Friday, so people will be firing away at that as well. Lots happening on a busy weekend. Thank you so much, Barry. Thanks to all of you for tuning in. We wish you the best of luck this weekend at Gulfstream Park.